Once again, hello everyone. Let's get started. I am at foundation course of the Odin project. I've also completed 14% of my foundation course. So let's continue. Resume. Installation overview. Introduction. The first step for building any website is having the right tools for us. That means setting up a development environment for writing good code. Many online development courses use in-browser code editors or sandboxes which give you the tools and programs needed to accomplish the task at hand and nothing else. You'll use some of these sandboxes throughout the early stages of the Odin project since they are great for getting started quickly. However, the best way to set yourself up for long-term success is to operate in a real development environment. We won't lie to you, installing packages, editors, and even entire operating systems can be very frustrating. However, having the experience of setting up a development environment to run the code you will write is an invaluable real world skill you will carry with you for the rest of your career, which I already have. The installation plan. In the following sections, we'll go over the steps for setting up your environment. There is no need to install anything in this lesson. This is an informative lesson. These sections are the most important steps in the entire curriculum. Please take the extra time to double check what you're typing, or you may cause some headaches for yourself down the road. The next few lessons, we will walk through these installation steps together. Installing a supported operating system, installing Google Chrome web browser, installing a code editor, creating an SSH key, a personal password that will identify you to GitHub, Heroku, and many other sites you will be using. At the end of the next lesson, you will be up and running with many of the tools you need to write and run code. It may seem like a lot of steps, but we'll get through it as painlessly as possible together. If anything goes wrong, remember to use these steps. Examine the terminal output for the actual error. Google, Google, Google. Never be afraid to ask for help. For Chromebook users, your OS choice has effectively been made for you. However, if your device supports the Linux beta, there are instructions in the next lesson on how to set this up on your device. OS options. macOS or Macintosh. If you are using a Mac, you are in great shape. The Odin project instructions assume a Unix based system. Installing just a few programs, you will be up and running with your education in no time. Linux official Ubuntu flavors. Linux is a free and open source operating system that works well with all programming languages. Most development tools are written to work natively with Linux. Your tools will likely be updated more often, have more information available for troubleshooting, and just plain run better on Linux. We'll be using Ubuntu, one of the most popular and user-friendly distributions available, or the lighter weight alternative X Ubuntu. If you don't use a Mac, we recommend that you use Linux. It's that simple. Windows. Windows is not natively supported by the Odin project or on our Discord server. However, if you are currently using Windows, you can use either a virtual machine or dual boot to keep your Windows installed while creating your development environment in Linux. A virtual machine is an emulator of a computer that runs within your existing OS. It allows you to use another operating system inside of a program on your current operating system. Example, running Linux inside of Windows. Virtual machines are as simple to install as any other programs and are risk free. If you don't like Linux, you can easily remove the virtual machine. Virtual machines are a great way for developers to get started quickly. Watch this video on virtual machine to achieve an overflow of how they work. Dual booting means installing two operating systems on your computer, which can give you the option to boot either Linux or Windows when your computer first starts up. The advantage of dual booting over a virtual machine is that the OS can use all of your computer's resources, resulting in much faster operation. There are some risks to installing a dual boot system because you are changing your hard drive partition, but you will be okay as long as you take your time and read the instructions. Dual booting can be as easy as inserting a flash drive and clicking a few buttons. The benefits of dual booting cannot be overstated. You will allow Linux to access the full capabilities of your hardware, have a clean and distraction-free environment for coding, and learn the platform used by many senior developers and servers around the world. Concerned about installing a new OS? Whoa, whoa, whoa. I like my OS just fine that way it is. If you don't have an Apple computer or you are likely using Windows, don't worry. The options above don't mean you need to get rid of Windows. Linux will gladly share the hard drive with Windows. We know you have probably learned a lot of tips and tricks for your favorite OS and don't want to lose everything you have on your computer. However, most OSs are developed with non-technical folks in mind, so they hide or make it difficult to use many of the languages and frameworks we'll need to install. Having to work around these difficulties causes many developers to give up before they have even started their journey to full stack nirvana. Modifying or dual booting a computer to work with the tools you will need will make it much easier to start. Programming can help create a distraction free environment and will look good on your resume. Take a deep breath. Let's look at your options. Still not convinced? Here are a few great reasons to install Linux. Tested. We have tested our directions with Mac OS, Ubuntu, and official Ubuntu flavors. We did the research so that you can get tools installed with as few issues as possible, getting you to coding sooner. Time spent wrestling with your operating system is time taken from learning how to code. Community support. Using the tools we recommend makes it easier for us to help when you run into trouble. Development tools are built for Linux, Ruby on Rails, and Node.js, popular backend technologies covered by the Odin project and widely used in the larger web development community are open source projects that explicitly expect to run on an open source Unix based platform like Linux. Work like the pros. Many developers use a Unix based operating system. Performance. You are worried about installing Linux because your machine is slow, older, or has limited space? When performance is a priority, Linux is a great choice. It uses fewer system resources than Windows and will occupy less hard drive space. Many learners come to our Discord channel to ask if the directions on this page need to be followed. The moderators of our Discord server wrote everything you just read about the installation plan. Those supporting learners on our Discord servers agree with the guidance on this page and will make the same recommendations you have read here. Before we can continue, we must first stress one detail of importance. We can only support what is provided within the scope of our curriculum. We do not support native Windows or any versions of Windows subsystem for Linux as a development environment. Using Windows and Windows subsystem for Linux has been discussed many times and it is not feasible to do so at this time. Please do not ask us to support Windows and please do not bring it up in the Discord. We are consistently evaluating our curriculum to keep content as fresh and accessible as possible. And Windows subsystem for Linux has not proven to be part of low resistant. What is the path of low resistant? As I have installed Windows subsystem for Linux, so the reason for this is the laptop I have, uh, it has some issues when using Linux, so I know how to dual boot Windows with Linux. I have installed Ubuntu, X Ubuntu. I've tried Debian and also Mint. Okay, so the issue is my touchpad and my audio output won't work with Linux. So this is the issue I was facing with Linux, and I've also done some research. I don't know if it's true or not. I do know some Linux command, but I have made some Reddit searches, like can I use Windows for the Odin projects, and there are people who had done Odin project and they said yeah, you can use Windows, just use Windows equivalent commands of Linux that Odin project provides. So like for sudo, there is command in Windows for sudo. For cd, which is current directory, there is command. Well, I think cd exists in Windows, so there are many commands that uh, that have same functions but different names, so it can be changed. But with Windows subsystem for Linux, I can run Linux into Windows and Linux command also. So I have installed it. Why I haven't installed virtual machine is because my laptop won't support it. It has limited resources and it won't handle the stress of a virtual machine running over Windows. So this is it, and I also asked someone in the Discord about should I use WSL because I have these issues, and well, one of the person, I don't know if he was an expert or not, but he said yeah, you can use, but remember, we don't provide any support for Windows subsystem for Linux. So I have to keep that in mind also, but this is my only option, so I'll go with it without any hesitation. So let's continue, but let me see what it is issues. Okay, it's a Git repo. Now, with that out of the way, we need to set up an appropriate development environment. Additional resources. This section contains blah 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 blah. Okay, so next lesson, I think, let me mark it as complete. Mark complete. So let's continue to next lesson in another video. Hello to everyone once again. Let's continue our next chapter, which is installations. Introduction. Let me zoom in a little bit. If you're already using Mac OS, Ubuntu, or any official flavors of Ubuntu as your operating system, and okay, let me do one thing. Yeah, it will be good. How much? 13.